Our view of the world has always been very simple, clear, and logical. For decades, scientists considered Mars to be a typical arid desert with no signs of activity whatsoever. It is an ancient, rocky planet with long, dry, lifeless riverbeds. Its incredibly thin atmosphere offers almost no protection from penetrating radiation. Visibility there is always crystal clear, revealing only bare, cold rocks. We sent the latest Perseverance rover there with a very simple scientific mission. It was simply supposed to collect samples of ordinary soil for future generations of researchers.
The rover gently landed in Jezero Crater, which was considered a typical dry lake bed.
Such a phenomenon simply should not physically exist in such hellish and harsh conditions. The surface of the red planet has been continuously sterilized by lethal ultraviolet radiation for billions of long years. Any complex organic compounds should have broken down into basic elements long ago. However, the modern Mars rover stubbornly detects a massive concentration of completely untouched ancient organic matter.
Our ironclad logic has suffered a serious breakdown, and we have absolutely no idea why this is happening.
This accidental discovery completely overturns our fundamental understanding of the structure of the cosmos. According to everything we know, this region should be completely quiet and dead. The ancient Jezero Crater has always looked like the most perfect example of planetary demise. It is an incredibly stable, predictable, and boring spot on our neighbor's geological map. No surprises or anomalies have occurred here for several billion long years. The mineral composition of Martian soil seemed to have been studied inside and out by our telescopes. We understand perfectly well exactly how such small, rocky planets die in space. First, the hot core inevitably cools, permanently shutting down the global protective magnetic field. Then, the relentless solar wind slowly but surely blows the thin atmosphere straight into the void. All liquid water gradually evaporates or freezes forever deep in the dead soil.
All that remains is a barren, dry chunk of rock, doomed to its eternal rotation.
It was precisely this sad scenario that was always, without exception, considered the only correct and definitive outcome. All researchers were absolutely certain that Mars had long since traveled this path to its end. We built very beautiful and elegant computer models of its distant, ancient past. They clearly showed the gradual and utterly inevitable fading of all climatic activity. The scientific community had long and humbly come to terms with the idea of Earth's uniqueness and isolation. We viewed our cosmic neighbor as a gloomy but very safe graveyard. But cautious engineers still installed the most precise chemical analyzers on Perseverance. This was done merely as a formality and to formally comply with all strict scientific protocols. No one in their right mind seriously expected to see green graphs of life on the monitors. The sophisticated instruments were only supposed to methodically record the complete absence of complex chemical compounds. The mission team had mentally prepared for long months of routine and tedious geological work. We sincerely believed that we were in complete control of the situation and fully understood all the rules. The scientists deliberately directed their rover straight toward the delta of an ancient, dried-up river. In theory, billions of years ago, water could have slowly carried ordinary river silt there. But over the immense span of time that has passed, all these soft sediments must have turned to stone. Any hypothetical Martian microbes would have had absolutely no chance of survival. Their fragile remains would inevitably and completely have been ground into fine dust by erosion. Every camera on the rover transmitted crystal clear images of the rocks back to Earth. The extremely high resolution made it easy to see every tiny crack in the rocks. Visually, it all looked like a completely ordinary and familiar desert on our planet. This quiet landscape held absolutely no threats visible to the human eye. Its serene and lifeless beauty lulled the vigilance of our experienced Earth-based operators into a false sense of security.
We felt like the rightful masters of this astonishingly quiet and empty world.
But it was precisely this excessive and blind self-confidence that played a very cruel trick on us. We believed too strongly in the absolute infallibility of our beautiful theoretical calculations. The scientists had completely forgotten the most important rule of space, its infinite unpredictability. Our universe is never as simple and understandable as we would like to believe, and this red planet was already preparing to deliver its first and devastating blow. The ideal model of planetary death was about to crumble in a single brief moment. But this is not at all what we are seeing on our screens right now. The rover's laser spectrometers suddenly yielded completely impossible and alarming results. Instead of the predictable and sterile radiation dust, we discovered dense clusters of untouched organic matter. This new data does not align at all with our well-established and reliable theory. Something is definitely and very seriously wrong in this quiet, ancient crater. The most frightening thing is the incredible and unnatural preservation of these fragile molecules. They lie undisturbed almost at the very surface under lethal and constant radiation. According to all the strict laws of physics, they should have disappeared completely and without a trace. Ultraviolet radiation should have burned them away billions of years ago without a trace. Yet they stubbornly and physically exist right before the lenses of our best cameras. Some mechanism completely unknown to us has reliably protected them from total destruction.
We clearly see these results, but we do not understand their physical nature at all.
Perhaps the rock of this crater possesses powerful shielding properties that are completely unknown to us, or perhaps the organic matter itself regenerates much faster than the merciless sun can destroy it. Both of these possibilities sound completely implausible to our modern Earth-based science. They require the mandatory presence of active chemical process on a dead and cold planet. Experienced researchers found themselves at a complete dead end in the face of this glaring anomaly. Our former confidence rapidly gave way to deep confusion and growing anxiety. We are forced to honestly admit that Mars is hiding very important details from us. The planet behaves completely unlike what one would expect from an ordinary cosmic corpse. It carefully preserves traces of its past with a frightening and unnatural meticulousness. It is as if someone had deliberately and carefully preserved these samples for our visit. The mission team has practically stopped sleeping at night, analyzing the strange spectrograms.
Every new image sent back only deepened the enormous scientific chasm that had formed.
We began consistently finding organic matter in every other rock drilled by the apparatus. This anomaly ceased to be a coincidence and turned into a frightening and clear pattern. The quiet and dead world began rapidly taking on completely different, terrifying features. This was only the very first warning of an impending massive crisis of understanding. We were too naively delighted by the discoveries, completely unaware of their true, far-reaching significance. The scientists sincerely believed they had simply solved an old geological mystery of their neighbor. But in reality, we had inadvertently opened a Pandora's box of planetary proportions. The whole situation began to spiral out of control with every new sample taken, and we were completely unprepared for what would happen to us next. And this is where things get significantly worse and completely baffling to science. This isn't just a single strange observation in one small, localized crater. We see the same terrifying anomaly over and over again, absolutely everywhere. The rover slowly moves through the delta and finds organic matter in every new layer. The problem is rapidly and inevitably spreading beyond the confines of a single random geological spot. At first, we really hoped that Jezero was a unique and isolated local oasis. Scientists boldly assumed that specific conditions existed only in this particular valley, but orbital spacecraft began detecting similar chemical markers literally everywhere. Infrared scanners show a widespread presence of water-bearing minerals across the Martian equator. Ancient sedimentary rocks stretch continuously for many thousands of kilometers in all directions. The entire planet is literally covered by a thick layer of biological building material. This undeniably means that 3.5 billion years ago, Mars was alive. It wasn't just a couple of small lakes with warm, murky water. There existed a vast global biosphere comparable to early Earth. The planet had a very dense atmosphere and a powerful protective magnetic shield. Conditions were not merely tolerable, they were absolutely ideal for life to thrive.
Earth's bacteria easily survive in boiling geysers and even radioactive waste.
We can clearly see evidence of a massive launch, but we see absolutely no signs of struggle. The surface simply comes to an abrupt halt in its evolutionary history at a single, specific moment. This incredibly abrupt transition causes us to seriously doubt our catastrophe theories. Perhaps the loss of the atmosphere was not so slow and entirely natural after all. Something caused this once flourishing world to turn into a dead wasteland far too quickly. Astrophysicists know of no natural mechanisms capable of such a rapid destruction of the biosphere, and this ignorance breeds a very deep, chilling anxiety in rigorous scientific circles.
We are looking at a massive crime scene, completely unaware of the very weapon used in the murder.
The more new data we receive, the more terrifying the overall picture becomes. Our confident model of a dead, lifeless rock has collapsed completely and irrevocably. In its place has emerged a gaping black hole of enormous fundamental scientific contradictions. We have come face to face with a phenomenon that completely shatters the basic rules of the survival of worlds. And the most alarming thing is that this concerns absolutely all of us. This problem is rapidly ceasing to be a purely Martian and local scientific mystery. This strange phenomenon is not limited to just one planet neighboring ours. We are slowly beginning to realize that this anomaly is of a fundamental, universal nature. Astronomers are currently applying new algorithms to the study of other planetary systems. And there, we are beginning to notice exactly the same strange discrepancies in chemical spectra. The basic rules governing the formation and demise of rocky worlds simply do not hold true. If our reliable model has completely failed here, then it is incorrect everywhere. We have always naively believed that life is an incredibly rare cosmic miracle. Scientists sincerely considered Earth a unique oasis in an endless, dead, and cold void. But the rover's discoveries directly and unequivocally prove the incredible ease with which complex organic matter arises. Life appears absolutely everywhere there is even the slightest chance. Biological material is an entirely natural consequence of the ordinary chemical evolution of planets. Scientists are beginning to reasonably suspect that the vast universe is playing hide-and-seek with us. We see only empty, dusty shells and naively consider them lifeless corpses. But Mars clearly and very forcefully demonstrates that any facade can be deceptive. Behind a thin layer of dead, radioactive dust lies an incredibly complex chemical history. And this frightening principle of deceptive emptiness may operate consistently on a galactic scale. Our view of space has turned out to be catastrophically superficial and far too naive. If our basic logic is broken here, we cannot trust our instruments. Orbital telescopes may deceive us by showing only what lies on the surface. we proudly draw global conclusions based on a negligible fraction of visual information. It's like judging the deep content of a book by its cover. All of our modern astronomy has suddenly turned out to be merely the science of illusory outer shells. We will never again be able to consider ourselves experts in astrobiology. Every new batch of data received from Mars only confirms our complete incompetence. We stand on the very threshold of the greatest crisis in the history of all the natural sciences. Our old laws have ceased to work, and we have not yet managed to discover new ones. Space has suddenly become a completely unfamiliar, incredibly hostile, and extremely unpredictable place. And the most terrifying thing lies in this global universalization of our local error. If the rigid laws of nature are the same everywhere, then they apply fully to us as well. Earth is by no means some magical exception to the general strict rules. We are entirely subject to the same unknown mechanisms as the neighboring rocky worlds. This shifts the scientific problem from a purely academic plane directly into a matter of survival. Concern for distant space is rapidly and frighteningly turning into fear for our own home. If our beautiful models don't work there, they could fail us badly here as well. This frightening thought strikes at the very core of our sense of planetary security. Our Mars is not just a distant rock in the dark night sky. It is a frighteningly accurate mirror of the possible near future of our own home, Earth. What happened to our neighbor could very well happen to our home. We have always naively considered Earth to be an absolutely reliable and eternal stronghold for humanity. Our powerful magnetic field seems like an indestructible shield against any cosmic radiation. The thick blue atmosphere gives us the illusion of complete control over the global climate. But the red planet, too, once possessed all of these powerful protective mechanisms. It had exactly the same rivers, deep oceans, and thick white clouds. And all this abundance vanished without a trace for physical reasons that are completely beyond our understanding. This is not merely a vague fear of the distant and utterly abstract cosmic void. It is a genuine existential terror of our own possible, imminent, and inevitable total destruction. We may indeed fail to survive as a species if we do not understand the new rules of the game. Mars is literally screaming at us about the impending danger through billions of years of deep silence. But we are still too foolish and arrogant to correctly decipher its important message. Every tiny organic molecule in the crater is a completely silent rebuke of our carelessness. They have stubbornly survived as dead chemical structures, but life itself has completely vanished. Or, even more terrifying, it has taken a form that we simply cannot recognize. This possibility terrifies all researchers far more than the concept of a simple total extinction, because it directly implies that we know absolutely nothing about evolution. We assess other complex worlds based solely on our own narrow and limited experience. What if our Earth is not the pinnacle of development at all, but merely a temporary incubator? Perhaps the open surface of planets is needed only for the initial launch of biological processes. True, mature, and intelligent life never remains under the open and extremely dangerous sky. Mars forces us to stare intently into this very disturbing and frightening cosmic mirror. We clearly see our reflection in it, but it is distorted beyond recognition. The familiar picture of a comfortable and understandable reality is cracking at the seams under the weight of new facts. We are no longer protected from the cold cosmos by our former cozy ignorance. Now we must quickly find answers, or we risk repeating this tragic fate. And the rover's next Martian discoveries are leading us down the most unexpected and grim path. But this is not the most pressing problem facing our bewildered science. The real problem is that we may have been catastrophically wrong in our basic assessments. What if complex life on Mars didn't die out billions of years ago at all? What if it simply retreated en masse to places where we cannot see it? This terrifying idea sends a cold shiver down the spines of all the leading astrobiologists of our time. Evolution itself possesses an incredible, practically limitless power to adapt to even the most hostile conditions. When the planet's surface began to lose its atmosphere, organisms did not simply sit and wait passively. They immediately began seeking refuge in the only safe direction available to them. The only reliable and durable shield against penetrating radiation was the Martian soil itself. Life began to descend very slowly but steadily into the deep, dark underground layers. This is an absolutely logical and biologically sound response to any global planetary threat. Realizing this incredible fact forces us to take a completely new look at all our ambitions. We are very proud that we have conquered our world and boldly ventured into outer space. But perhaps the truest evolutionary wisdom lies precisely in retreating deep inward. The Martian hidden biosphere may be far older, more stable, and more complex than our young Earths. It's just that its primary vector of development was directed in a completely different direction, one unfamiliar to us. If we are physically incapable of even comprehending such a simple strategy, we are extremely vulnerable. Our human logic is rigidly tied to light, the surface, and vast open spaces. We are completely unable to think in terms of dark, enclosed, and very deep underground ecosystems. This conceptual blindness makes us very weak in the face of the real diversity of universal life. The vast cosmos turned out to be not just strange, it turned out to be fundamentally alien to our narrow thinking. And the deeper we realize this, the stronger our inner existential tension becomes. And this inevitably leads us to the next, even more terrifying thought about the universe. If Mars was able to hide its life so masterfully and effectively, then who else could have done so? Perhaps this is not at all a local adaptation to the harsh conditions of a single small rocky planet. Perhaps this is the fundamental and most important rule of survival for all intelligent cosmic species. And then, our childlike openness and love for the surface looks like a fatal evolutionary mistake. We are the only naive fools who have remained standing in plain sight of the entire cosmos. This frightening logic leads us to the darkest and most paranoid modern scientific theories. What if the retreat deep underground was dictated not only by the banal loss of the atmosphere? In the wild, organisms hide in burrows for one fundamental reason. They always do so to avoid encountering a stronger and extremely dangerous predator. Perhaps the Martian biosphere sensed a global threat that did not originate from the cooling inner core. This grim concept resonates with the most alarming hypotheses of modern theoretical astrosociology. The boundless universe may be full of dangers we don't even suspect right now. Life on the open surface makes a planet too conspicuous and vulnerable to external hostile forces. Any biomarkers in the atmosphere are clearly visible across vast interstellar distances through any powerful telescope. Any technologically advanced civilization would easily spot a thriving world by the spectrum of oxygen and methane. An open, bustling ecosystem is a bright neon sign attracting completely unnecessary attention from outsiders. If ancient Mars truly went into hiding consciously and intentionally, that changes all the rules of the game. This is not merely a forced biological adaptation, it is a deliberate strategy of complete and utterly reliable camouflage. The planet could have deliberately shed its atmosphere and turned its surface into a lifeless, radioactive wasteland. It voluntarily donned the perfect camouflage of a completely dead and utterly uninteresting rocky sphere. No cosmic predator in the universe would waste its time excavating such a sterile corpse. If this hypothesis, which seems crazy at first glance, is even partially correct, the consequences for us are catastrophic. Right now, our Earth is shining in the radio and chemical spectra like a giant cosmic beacon. We are very happily and carelessly broadcasting the fact of our existence to all corners of the dark galactic abyss. Our dense atmosphere is overflowing with clear biological markers, literally screaming about the presence of complex life here. We are behaving like very carefree children playing with fire in a dry, dark forest, and we still have absolutely no idea who or what is watching us right now. We suddenly and harshly realize our incredible and extremely dangerous loneliness on this open stage. Our young species is the sole naive actor who stubbornly continues to sing in an empty and utterly dark hall. The invisible audience may be in the darkness, but their true intentions are completely and utterly unknown to us. This oppressive thought transforms our former exploratory enthusiasm into a paralyzing and cold, primal fear. We no longer want to draw attention to ourselves at all, but we are already physically unable to stop. But we are too ambitious and self-assured to heed this silent, lifeless stone. We stubbornly continue to joyfully drill into the surface, trying to dig down to the truth hidden deep beneath it. We have absolutely no idea that some doors in the universe are best never opened in our lifetime. Our utterly blind curiosity could become the very fatal spark that will destroy our world forever. The reality around us is truly not what we thought. It is many times harsher and more merciless, and humanity's next step could be the very last mistake in our long earthly history. And if we do not understand the cause at all, we cannot correctly predict the consequences of our actions. Our major space agencies are already openly preparing the next wave of ambitious Mars exploration missions. The main goal of all these new spacecraft is to penetrate deep beneath the planet's dry, dead, radioactive crust. Engineers are actively designing powerful drilling rigs capable of easily piercing through meters of solid rock. They are seriously intent on reaching those very warm aquifers where heat and perhaps life has been preserved. Earth's biology teaches us that prolonged isolation gives rise to the most extreme and utterly unpredictable forms of defense. Even ancient Earth viruses, unearthed from the permafrost, pose a tremendous danger to modern living organisms. Martian subterranean inhabitants may possess biochemistry that is absolutely lethal to carbon-based life forms. A single accidental and careless contact at the tip of a steel drill bit could unleash a dormant and utterly merciless force. And we ourselves, with our own hands, will build a direct bridge for this deadly force to our planet. The soil samples we've brought back, which we're so eager to return, could become a Trojan horse for all of humanity. A complex plan to return Martian soil to Earth has already been officially launched and is being heavily funded. Right now, our Perseverance rover is very carefully collecting capsules containing valuable rock at the bottom of this crater. These small titanium tubes lie in the dust, waiting for the next sophisticated spacecraft to come and retrieve them. Scientists plan to place them in a special protective capsule and send them directly to research laboratories on Earth. This sounds like an absolutely perfect scientific plan, but it harbors a colossal and hidden threat. We are far too confident in our biological containment systems and strict quarantine safety protocols. We naively believe that we can easily keep alien life confined in sterile boxes behind thick, sturdy glass. But our immense self-assurance is based solely on the behavior patterns of primitive Earth microorganisms known to us. If the Martian biosphere was able to successfully adapt to the destruction of an entire planet, it will adapt to absolutely anything. Our glass flasks and carbon air filters may turn out to be nothing more than a laughable and fragile barrier to it. We will voluntarily bring to Earth a perfect survival mechanism that we simply will not be able to resist in any way. The vast universe watches us with icy indifference and a complete lack of even the slightest sympathy. We are trying to play by rules we have never understood and may never fully understand. And while we prepare powerful drills to pierce Mars's crust, the time of our blissful ignorance is rapidly running out. Soon, we will learn the true price of our boundless and utterly uncontrollable scientific and human curiosity. This price may prove to be completely incompatible with our continued existence as an intelligent biological species in space. And then, we will finally understand why space seems so terrifyingly empty, cold, and silent to us. This inevitably leads us to the final and most painful realization of our true role. We are by no means the masters of the cosmos and will never become the great conquerors of the boundless starry expanses. Our species is merely a tiny, temporary anomaly on the surface of one very fortunate rocky planet. True power in the universe belongs to those who have learned to merge completely with the darkness and absolute silence. Our neighbor Mars understood this billions of years ago and passed its harsh test of survival with flying colors. We look at its cold, rust-colored sands and see only our own scientific and philosophical defeat. Ancient organic matter in the Jezero Crater has indisputably proven that our fundamental models of reality were fundamentally flawed. Life is by no means a fragile flower that must be protected from the slightest breath of cold cosmic wind. It is an incredibly tough, aggressive, and very stubborn mechanism, capable of surviving even the death of its own home world, and this ancient mechanism is waiting for us right now in the darkness while we carelessly pick at the top layer of dust. Our absolute ignorance is our only yet very fragile and unreliable defense against this terrifying reality. In such a terrifying light, the future of humanity looks not like a proud expansion, but like a forced, hasty retreat. Sooner or later, our Earth will also lose its protective shield, and we will have to make a very difficult choice. Either we will perish ingloriously on the open surface, gazing proudly at dead stars in our final seconds, or we will emulate the intelligent Martians and begin building our own dark and infinitely deep shelters. In any case, our current Earth-based model of civilization is doomed to complete, final, and inevitable destruction. The stunning discoveries of the Perseverance rover have forever deprived us of our most vital resource, our blind faith in safety. We can no longer physically gaze at the starry sky with the same romantic and naive, childlike joy. These distant, twinkling points now seem to us like the cold eyes of predators or sealed crypts of dead hopes. The vast universe has cast off its beautiful mask, revealing to us a cold, calculating, and utterly indifferent mechanism. And within this soulless mechanism, we are assigned the role of a very small and extremely vulnerable biological cog. This tiny part can easily be replaced or completely destroyed without the slightest harm to the entire vast galactic system. Perhaps this is precisely why we have yet to detect a single radio signal from deep space. Various intelligent species quickly realize that shouting into the darkness is a surefire way to invite trouble. They immediately fall silent, hide, and blend into the background, leaving only dead radioactive dust on the surface. The great silence of the universe is by no means a sign of the absence of life, but absolute proof of its incredible horror. It is a powerful collective instinct for self-preservation, multiplied by billions of years of brutal and uncompromising cosmic species evolution. We are the only naive fools who disturb this perfect and vitally necessary cosmic silence with our powerful radio signals. We constantly behave like noisy savages who have just found a loud drum in a dark, terrifying forest. Our time on this open surface is inexorably and very rapidly approaching its logical and sad end. Neighboring Mars is desperately trying to warn us with its organic molecules, frozen in cold, ancient rock. But we are too intoxicated by our modest technical achievements to hear this quiet, dead whisper. We stubbornly continue marching toward a vast abyss, proudly carrying the banners of our scientific progress before us. And when the sturdy drills of the next rovers finally pierce the protective layer of the red planet, an inevitable collision will occur. We will come face to face with a reality for which we are completely and utterly unprepared, both technically and morally. This will be no joyful reunion of kindred spirits, but rather the opening of an ancient sealed quarantine facility, and then all our beautiful theories will finally give way to a primal, cold, and paralyzing animal fear. We will finally realize that reality is truly not what we have presumptuously believed throughout our history. The surviving organic matter on Mars has completely shattered our familiar framework of what the universe should look like and how it should behave. If biological life is capable of surviving in such hellish conditions, then our criteria for habitability are worthless. We are tightly surrounded not by dead balls of rock, but by dormant bastions of incredibly ancient and secretive biological systems. And we still have absolutely no understanding of their true motives, their forms, or their hidden, immense destructive potential. Our growing anxiety is no longer the paranoia of a handful of lone scientists. It is an absolutely objective and terrifying scientific reality. Every new chemical scan of Martian soil only reinforces the feeling that we are making a colossal and fatal mistake. We are sticking our dirty hands into an incredibly delicate mechanism that was set in motion long before our humble arrival. And the consequences of this extremely reckless interference could prove catastrophic not only for science, but for the entire species. The illusion of our safety melted away the very moment the rover transmitted the first impossible spectrograms from that damned crater. We suddenly found ourselves utterly naked and defenseless in the face of this vast, complex, and utterly alien unknown. The entire philosophy of our human existence has suffered a massive crack that cannot be patched up with new mathematical theories or complex formulas. We are no longer the proud crown of creation, but merely noisy neighbors who greatly annoy the ancient inhabitants of a quiet neighborhood. The future of humanity no longer seems so bright, boundless, and full of great and joyful cosmic discoveries. We will have to relearn how to survive in a world where the best strategy is absolute silence and complete, reliable invisibility. We will have to completely reevaluate all our priorities and perhaps give up forever on the dream of conquering the vast galaxy. The boundless universe is full of life, but this life wants absolutely nothing to do with us for very good reasons. It has hidden itself away, lying in wait, and quietly waits until we destroy ourselves with our own foolish hyperactivity. Mars is by no means a lifeless wasteland. It is the perfect monument to how one should properly adapt to cosmic threats. And its deep, incredibly cold silence is the loudest warning cry we could ever receive. But we continue to stubbornly and persistently ignore this cry, blinded by our pride and endless thirst for new data. We stubbornly march toward a mystery that may well prove to be our very last in this long history. We have always naively thought that we were beginning to understand exactly how our vast and beautiful universe is structured and works. But now, looking closely at these strange graphs from the red planet, we are not so sure of that at all. The more intently we stare into this dark abyss, the less logic and meaning remain in it. And we still have absolutely no idea why the reality around us deceives us so cruelly and cynically. If this is indeed the terrifying truth, then we are missing something truly fundamental in the structure of this entire universe. Something absolutely monumental and deadly dangerous, which we have not yet even been able to detect or comprehend with our instruments.